had ambitions of constructing a railway that would stretch from Berlin through the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Balkans, and into the Ottoman Empire. However, Turkey wasn't convinced yet of joining the Central Powers, but some in the upper military and political branch wanted the war desperately to have executive powers and control over the empire. One of these men was Enver Pasha, who was the Minister for War for the empire. 2 German battleships were in Turkish waters, so he disguised the troops on board in Ottoman uniforms and attacked a nearby Russian ship. This act caused Russia to declare war on the Ottoman Empire, thus bringing them into the conflict without the approval of the government or the people. Now 3 major powers were able to keep the Entente in check, with now Germany, Austro-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire fully completing their Central Powers. Bulgaria would also join their side a year later, attacking Serbia and other Balkan states, all of which would join the Entente. By 1915, the Russians had been fighting the Ottomans in the Caucasus and asked for assistance from the Allies. It was clear to all powers that the stalemate on the Western Front was here to stay. The Mobile War of the summer of 1914 had bogged down into muddy attritional trench warfare. Wave after wave of attacking soldiers would be cut down by artillery and interlocking machine gun fire. However, the top military brass of the British Army still believed in a quick victory, and if it could not be achieved in the West, perhaps it could be achieved elsewhere. Now that Turkey had entered the war on the side of the Central Powers, Britain had looked to knock them out of the war as quickly as possible. The Ottoman Empire was known as the sick man of Europe, so it was perceived that victory would be swift. Turkey also had large deposits of oil that could be used to fuel the war effort for Britain. First Lord of the Admiralty Winston Churchill decided to launch an invasion of the Dardanelles on February 19, 1915. The Dardanelles were the quickest way to reaching the capital of the empire, Constantinople. Also, it would give the Entente access to the Black Sea, allowing a direct route between the alliance. This operation would be known as the Gallipoli campaign and would be an amphibious landing invasion from the coast to land. The British Navy attacking the Dardanelles consisted of 3 battle cruisers, 25 destroyers, 13 submarines, and 1 super dreadnought. The invading infantry consisted of Britain and her allies, 2 French divisions, and Anzac forces, which were the Australians and New Zealanders. The opening phase would have a month-long artillery bombardment, followed by troops landing at Cape Helles and Anzac Cove. The Ottomans didn't have a navy to contest with the British, so they opted for mines and some coastal cannons. Also, they had machine guns set up at high peaks overlooking all possible landing points. There was no way to keep this operation a secret, so the navy just shelled the daylight out of the coasts, thus giving away the element of surprise and allowing the defenders to set up better defenses, since it was obvious wherever was being shelled indicated where the Allies would land. The infantry troops would land in April and would be met with stiff resistance from machine guns, shooting at men in rowboats, painstakingly rowing to the shores with men dying all around as they were getting off their boats. The British 29th Division landed at Cape Helles and the Anzacs landed at Anzac Cove, further north. This spot would become a symbol of Anzac persistence, sacrifice, and independence, as they got much further than the British at Cape Helles, and it was a far more contested point. As the landings went on, the attacking forces were able to hold onto slivers of land, but still weren't able to keep their desired objectives. This was enough for the top military brass to continue with the operation, sending more men into the beaches to be killed by Turkish soldiers defending their homeland. One of the standout regiments were the Indian Gurkhas, who attacked at the Sari Bayar Ridge and pushed the Turks back to the waters near Hellesport, the furthest any army had gotten during the entire campaign. Sir Ian Hamilton, commander of the operation, said he wished he had an entire regiment of Indian Gurkhas, as they would have taken the Dardanelles single-handedly. Eventually, just like the Western Front, the stalemate on the beaches would bog down into trench warfare. Artillery couldn't be used as much as the Western Front, since the trenches were just a few meters away from each other. Soldiers on both sides were unable to retrieve and bury their dead due to the opposing trenches being so close to each other, thus causing flies in the millions to occupy the battlefield, as well as disease spreading among the soldiers. So both sides called a temporary truce to retrieve the dead from no man's land. The Allies would suffer 3,500 casualties at Cape Helles and 18,000 casualties at Anzac Cove. After almost a year of being stuck on a beach, it became obvious that the Allies had walked right into the same situation they tried to avoid on the Western Front, and so the order was given to evacuate over 140,000 Allied soldiers from the Dardanelles on December 7th. The evacuation was a total bloodless success. Certain steps were taken to disguise the fact that the evacuation was taking place. Once the Ottomans had found out what was going on, the Allies had already left. The Ottomans were relieved, and ever since, the Gallipoli campaign became a symbol of national pride and was seen as a valiant defense of their homeland. However, the events that transpired during and after inside the empire was anything but valiant.